So with that, I would like to introduce Morningstar Gali, who is the tribal water organizer for Save California Salmon, and also part of different police accountability and statue removals and justice programs for Native people within California. Thank you for being here today, Morningstar.
Thank you so much for having me, Chimisanwi. It's really good to be here with all of you. We've had a pretty incredible and busy week. I just want to acknowledge that it's been 24 days now since we have been in the streets and in solidarity with the George Floyd actions. So I helped to coordinate a committee through the Anti-Police Terror Project in Sacramento. We coordinate the Healing Justice Committee that provides support to families that have been impacted by police terrorism. So it's been a really busy couple of weeks where we are providing trainings such as Know Your Rights training, Cop Watch trainings, street medic training to ensure the safety of our relatives and community members. This week, this week we had a couple of victories where we had 3 statues come down. And so that has been, the fruition of many years, decades of work by local tribes, by community members. So it was the John Sutter statue in front of Sutter Hospital that came down on Monday. On Tuesday, while we were holding an event in recognition of that, we received word that the Queen Isabella and Columbus statue are coming out of the state capitol rotunda. And then as of Thursday morning, the Columbus statue that sat atop Coit Tower in San Francisco was also pulled off. And so I just wanted to give that update, and in acknowledgement of the Juneteenth celebrations that are taking place. For those that are local within the Sacramento area, there is a Black Justice event that will be taking place at Cesar Chavez Plaza today at 6 p.m. So we will be there for the opening of that. So, sorry, it changed to Barbara's over there. So I will start my slideshow here, and we can talk about the efforts with Save California Salmon. Okay, is that working?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so I'll just start by saying that it really is an honor to work with Save California Salmon and alongside such incredible people that are very much dedicated to protecting our lifeways and our culture. So as was mentioned earlier, this is a map of California and our unratified treaty lands, our state boundaries, that California is home to many tribes over, we're very unique and diverse, where we have 109 federally recognized tribes, which is considered federally recognized, over 50 considered NFR tribes, non-federally recognized. We have tribes that within California, we have unacknowledged, terminated, disenrolled, and disenfranchised tribal members. And I also want to acknowledge that that tribes have been left out within the CARES tribal set-aside programs, that unacknowledged tribes do not operate Indian Health Service clinics and have historically been deemed ineligible and tribes that are not considered federally recognized were also not addressed in Governor Newsom's apology that was made 1 year ago. And so we held an event at the state capitol yesterday, just in that 1 year anniversary, and saying that apology needs to be met with action, and we have not seen any action within this past year. And so one avenue of that is the Junipero Serra statue there at the state capitol that lists all of the California missions, and that absolutely needs to come down as well. So here is a photo. I worked for my tribe. I worked for Pit River Tribe for over 4 years as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. If you go to the Tribal Advisor website, I'm still listed as the TIPO, and it's been 4 years now. So that just shows how slow that they move within the state and within the work that they are doing to even keep that information updated. In working for my tribe and advocating outside of my tribe as a tribal member, we've really learned, how they keep us inundated with these tribal meetings. And so I know that Kelly can speak more to that and is very familiar with. They'll hold meetings in Sacramento, they'll hold meetings in Redding, they'll hold meetings in Santa Rosa. They do this intentionally to not only wear us down, but it's a capacity issue for sure. And so being in Sacramento, I've been able to attend more of the meetings and be able to provide more comments, more public comments. But it still is, there's so much that needs to be done on the state's end in terms of proper engagement with tribes and tribal peoples. So I just wanted to share a little bit of information. So this is my own tribal homeland of Pit River. This is shown of the Pit River and Hat Creek and Burney Creek. And so these are some of our waterways that for us as Isawi, as Pit River peoples, that our water flows from Medicine Lake to the Fall River, to the Pit River, to the Sacramento River, down to the Bay Delta, and flows out into the San Francisco Bay. And so when we use terms like Toloquaitu.com, we are all related. Like we are all related. We are all, the water that I am next to here within the Sacramento River is directly from our homelands. It's all connected throughout our waterways. But we don't have salmon on our rivers. We have not had salmon on our rivers for over 80 years now. There's been a lot of conversations around PG&E and how what has started with the fires and how PG&E has not been accountable to California residents. But through my tribe and surrounding tribes, we have been fighting PG&E for many decades, and PG&E never fulfilled their promise of instilling fish ladders within the dams on our rivers. And so I think I may just end there. Here's a photo of the salmon bake from the youth camp that took place last September. And this is really a big part of all of the advocacy, is ensuring that these lessons are being taught and handed down to our youth. I know that was very instrumental in, when I was a teenager, I participated in a camp called Camp Salmon River People that was provided by Humboldt State and took youth from, tribal youth from all over the North State. And we spent 2 weeks camping all along the Klamath and learning all that we could in both from the fisheries, from elders, lots of stories that were shared. And so that's been a part of my advocacy in ensuring that our youth are also having those opportunities that were shared and passed down to us. And so here is a flyer of some of the actions that we've held for the public hearings. So that one was Sacramento, Redding, and then here is our next generation of the youth leading the way with that. And this last slide, you know, it's really sad and it's really frustrating at times, because this whole fish versus farms narrative that they use farm workers, and they use, you know, indigenous peoples and pitting us against one another, because we know that this isn't necessarily, you know, fish versus farms, that we're all fighting big ag, that we know that it is big ag that is polluting our waters and polluting our lands, and that it's indigenous peoples that don't have the access to clean drinking water. And so this was a rally when we were in Sacramento, and there was a busload of migrant farm workers that were bused over to the Capitol to basically challenge us and tell us that fish preferred lighter flows, and that fish preferred less water, and that the Stop the Water grab is that for us to advocate for the water, not to, you know, so that we're having enough water within our rivers means less water for their farms. And so I'll just end with that and hand it back over. Thank you.
Thank you, Morningstar. 1 second. Unfortunately, our next presenter was having some technical difficulties, so we're waiting for her to call back in, so we'll probably have her go last. So I wanted to introduce the chief of the Winnemem-Wintu tribe, Colleen Sisk, and she is going to talk about the Shasta Dam raise, sites, reservoirs, and other threats to the Winnemem-Wintu tribe, and also about their work to bring the salmon back above the Shasta Dam, which is so amazing. So so glad you can make it today, Colleen.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, those are pretty big topics. We've been working on for like 20 years. In the last 10 years, we've been, you know, battling in the meetings. And I think people need to start recognizing some of the terms like Westlands Water District, one of the largest water districts in the world. And they are the culprit that continues to suck the rivers dry, suck the dams dry, and rob everybody of the water, including the fish. And for us, you know, it's like we need to express to people, why is it that we, you know, fighting for the water for the fish? Because remember, Morningstar said that we don't have water rights. We haven't adjudicated our water rights. We don't have fishing rights. We can't go down on the Sacramento River and fish for salmon. Yet the tribes are fighting for the salmon to have water to come up the river. And it's like, overall, you have to look at the bigger picture of the ecology of the environment, and what does it need for all life, all of us. And it's been doing without the fish for over 80 years. This has to stop. This is coming to an end. That once that end comes, that water is not going to be as good. It's not going to do the things that you want it to do, because people are not giving back anything to the riverbeds, to the river, to the soils, to the high mountain waters. I mean, we're talking about our salmon have to be able to climb a mountain. They have to climb up 5,000 to 7,000 feet to get to their spawning grounds. So the fish hatchery fish that people might think they're relying on, or the farm fish, those things are dying out. And I think that NOAA and some of the other fisheries realize what's going on with that, and now have restoration plans to get the fish above the rim dams. It was a lawsuit, of course, but in that lawsuit, the biological opinion made it clear that to restore salmon, they had to get above these rim dams, including Shasta Dam, Oroville Dam, Friant, and some of the other ones. But they're starting with the Shasta Dam, which is, it is baffling because at the same time they're starting with the Shasta Dam to restore salmon above the dam itself, they're also preparing documents to raise the dam. So it's like, if the dam's not high enough already for figuring out how to get fish over or around it, they're going to raise it higher to make it a little more difficult. They'll flood a little more of the McCloud River, giving Westlands more water. At the same time, they're supposed to be restoring the salmon. And, you know, I think there more and more people need to start looking at what are our commitments and what do we need to do about making sure that water is living, that water is alive, that our riverbeds are healthy. And we need those fish to be able to do that. They're the ones that turn the rocks over and aerate the bottom of the river. They feed everything in the river from the time that they're eggs to the time they come back as adults. They feed everything. They feed the bugs, they feed other fish in the rivers and the ocean. They feed the birds, the bears. They feed us, and they feed the soil. They feed the trees. And we shouldn't look at that as like a low marker element that we're dealing with, fish or farms. It's like, and we're at this point in time where we realize GMO farming is going out. Farms in the Fresno Valley, San Joaquin Valley area are polluted. And now, I don't know if you know that Westlands Water District is trying to dump their selenium into the aqueduct for all of the water drinkers below them to deal with. And it's like nobody's looking or nobody understands what does that mean. There's no way of getting rid of selenium. And so what they're going to do is they're just going to put it in the aqueduct and ship it on down to LA and San Diego for them to deal with, I guess. But, you know, our struggle continues. You know, we have a story about salmon and that how we're related and how we come out of Mount Shasta together, and that salmon has always been there for us, helped us. From the very beginning, they gave us their voice so that we could communicate. We could do some things here on Earth that, you know, find out what our jobs are supposed to be. And as Winnemem, we always feel like we should be talking for the salmon because they gave us the voice. They can't talk. They can't yell at us anymore. They can't yell at the fishermen. You know, they can't show any emotion to that, what's happening. And so, you know, us, whatever's happened to the salmon, I feel like, you know, it's totally happening to us. You know, they blocked, by Shasta Dam, they blocked all the salmon from going up our river. And they also blocked us from living on our river. And now this salmon population is diminishing. And so is the population of the Winnemem people. And so it's like, we realize that whatever happened to salmon is inevitably going to happen to us, which means happens to people, not just Winnemem, but people overall. And that's so hard to explain to people that this is not just a scientific do this, do that kind of thing, because, you know, you can talk to Noah and say, you know what, all of your science for all of these years to restore salmon has not worked. And now you want to restore salmon using those exact same plans of truck and haul, you know, trap and haul them when it doesn't work now. And it's like, why can't we just build a waterway? Why can't we allow the fish to swim into their native waters and out again. That's what has to happen. And even though they'll say, gee, that's really expensive, that's expensive. It's like, how expensive is it? Because we know that it costs $80 million a year for Shasta Dam to operate and run its cold water pool from Redding to Red Bluff. If they built a waterway, which we've introduced from Cow Creek, we do the run for salmon, and we've taken the Cow Creek exit off of the Sacramento River, that a waterway could be established right up Dry Creek and into Shasta Lake. That, maybe it's expensive, but does it cost $80 million? Does it cost $160 million? Every year it's going to be cheaper because you're not going to have to spend the $80 million on the cold water pool. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. And all of the other bright ideas of, dumping gravel in the river. Let's make more salmon beds. It's like, really, can the humans decide where the salmon are going to spawn by dumping gravel in the river? It's like the river decides where to move those rocks. And what they have ultimately accomplished is to fill up the deep pools that were in the Sacramento River, where the salmon would pool during the hot, drier months, to fill them up halfway. So 20-foot deep pools are now 10-foot deep because bright-eyed biologists decided to dump gravel into the river to create more spawning beds, instead of spend all that money and build a waterway. It's like, why don't you just want to do that? And of course, we're a tribe that has, we have the native salmon from the McLeod River swimming in New Zealand. And so while we're trying to work with DWR and the Water Board and NOAA, all trying to figure out the restoration of salmon, is like, we are still saying, we are your best bet. We are your strongest advocates for restoring salmon. But we don't want those hatchery fish up there. We don't want the farm fish up there. We want you to retrieve the New Zealand salmon that were from here and bring back that strain of the McLeod River salmon. And in doing that, we're still, we still have to deal with PG&E just as the Pitt River Tribe does, and to, make sure that those Pitt 1 all the way through 10 or so develops their ladders, their fish ladders, which they should have already done, not because they're salmon, but because they have rainbow trout. And the rainbow trout are also migratory, but they're trapped between these pit houses on the river, and so it's like the smartest guys about fish need some help, but they don't really know that they do, and they're not going to take it from, unrecognized tribe. We don't have any salmon on our river anymore, so what could we know about that? But I think that if you look at the plans of the Delta Tunnel, the tribes cannot allow that Delta Tunnel to be built because they will suck every bit of water out of the Sacramento River and ship it as soon as they have the permits to do so. The Sites Reservoir is an off-stream reservoir. It has no way to fill other than by taking water from the Sacramento River to fill it, which means taking water from the salmon to store, which will get warm, and then release it back into when Westlands needs it. So it doesn't really make sense to me. And then to raise Shasta Dam by 18.5 feet, flooding more of the McLeod River, and not dealing with the toxic sludge in the bottom of Shasta Dam. And they're building on a very old dam. And this dam also has an earthquake fault line that runs through it. So it doesn't really make sense, but these are the efforts that we're fighting against. And we just don't have enough people to show up at all the meetings. That's kind of what it's nice to have Morningstar in Sacramento to, because you know, we're not on their list for them to call to say, hey, we need a meeting. We have to find these things out and then show up at that meeting, and then they don't really know what to do with us. They have to answer the questions because the Delta tunnel is not dealing with the cultural aspects of the village sites that are all around that area. So anyway, you know, if there's folks out there who have the ability to pitch in and help and do some stuff, bring the kids out and understand the plans, because this impacts all of our future generations. All of the kids that are coming up are going to be subjected to however this plays out with the Westlands dumping the selenium. You know, they tried to get water, a permanent water, allocated to them, an unlimited amount, which it didn't go. So that was a good thing. But they're always trying to do something like that, right? So regardless of tribes that are recognized or not recognized, other tribes need to wake up and start pitching in on this water plan. You know, stop the casino focus so much that you are forgetting about the waterfowl, you're forgetting about the fish, you're forgetting about the water, and come back to that so that you can help. Anyway, I think I'll end right there.